I'm recording. I am recording. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We'll jump right into it. As I sign in here and grab this. Okay, sweet. January 19th, agenda. Apologies for the late start. My 9-month-old just woke up, so I was helping get him ready for the day before I jumped on. All right, maybe we'll just start by going around and making sure everyone on the call has a chance to introduce themselves. And if you have a topic that you want to cover on the agenda that maybe isn't already listed, this would be a great time to flag and we can just append the agenda as we go. So I'll start. I'm Jeff Holland. I'm from Microsoft. And the only updates I have is I have a to-do list to finish a PR around scalar governance that I did not get to this week that I was hoping to. It was on my to-do list every day and I kept punting it. So I think I should still have the time. I don't have my calendar open right now, but especially on Friday. So I'm going to keep that one. And I should be able to get to it this week. If I don't get it to this week, then I might have to just punt it off to someone else, but we'll see. And the only other one I have before I keep going, actually, I'll pause that one. I just have some folks from Microsoft who might start attending these that I was able to talk to about this week. So with that, I'm just going to go down the list as I see it. Daniel, you're the next one that I see.
Hi, guys. I'm Daniel. I'm from Astronomer. And I do have something to add to the agenda. So I figured out the problem I discussed with you guys last meeting. However, it's kind of opened up some new problems that are pretty interesting. Essentially, what happened was that the customer who was using KEDA and having problems, they were on EKS and they had switched their entire CNI to Calico, which I guess is a thing people do in EKS when they're doing it at scale, because like Calico has like a limited number of, you need Calico, otherwise you're limited in the number of IPs you can use for your cube cluster. And what happens is Calico doesn't allow anything in the cube, any like custom controllers to speak to the cube API. So you have to put it on the host network. But then once it's on the host network, nothing inside of, no network policies work. So definitely something that not sure if we have a workaround for that.
Okay,
so
great.
Wanted to kind of bring that up with you guys. Yeah.
Yep, we'll dig into that some. That's perfect. Just going off my list, and I think some of these folks are just joining, so sorry for putting you on the spot. We're just kind of going through, giving a quick intro, and then letting me know if there's something we should add to the agenda, or if you're just here to hang out and listen in. So next on my list, I have Terry Humphreys.
Hi, I'm with GTP Services. We're kind of a high-level user at KEDA. And some of the high-level things we use, such as KEDA and AKS and those things, like to sit in on the public meetings just to get a sense for direction and how things are going and that type of thing. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks for joining, Terry. Feel free to chime in at any time. Tom, I've got you next.
Hello, my name is Tom Kerkhoven. I'm an agile architect for a company called Coldit. I'm just here to listen as well.
Yeah, and the first 3 agenda items, I think. And this one's a great one. I'm using this one later today, actually, in a demo, and I used it during that webinar last week. Okay, so next I see on my list is Aaron. Aaron, you want to give a quick intro and let us know if you want us to add anything to the agenda?
Howdy. Yeah, Aaron Schlesinger, work at Microsoft. I am working on the KEDA HTTP add-on, and I can give like a 30-second update on where that is, maybe at the end, or
yeah, that'd actually be great.
Cool.
This is still always one of the FAQs whenever I do a presentation on KEDA is what about HTTP? So I'm loving that we're getting some progress here. Okay, Ritika, I've got you next.
Hi, I'm Ritika. I'm from NEC India, and I'm working as an open source developer. Just ending the meeting for updates and listening.
Yep, perfect. Thanks for joining. Shubham.
Hi, my name is Shubham. I'm from NEC. I'm working for NEC as an open source developer. I'm here for just attending the meeting and for updating.
Perfect. Thanks for joining. Okay, I think that's
Thanks.
everyone. Great. All right, so we'll jump into the agenda then. And I will just add, CNCF incubation is the one I'll add because that has to do with the new PM that I'm going to see if we can get some help with. So we'll get to that there. So we will go back to our regular scheduled programming. This first issue, let me open it up. I'm assuming, Tom, that you created this. Zibyanek's not on today. I don't know if he's off just because he's off for the day, or I think he's also expecting a child. I don't know if that's what's happened either. I don't know, Tom, if you know. Mostly just curious.
Maybe I should unmute, but he couldn't make it today, but he added this issue because somebody wants to have ARM support. Unfortunately, GitHub does not provide an ARM GitHub Actions runner. So we'd love to do this, but we would have to somehow run ARM. I don't think Azure has ARM support yet, so we would need to get it somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem.
Makes sense. Like we could one off. I mean, the other one we could do is like we could give people the instructions. That's like if you have an ARM processor to actually build this thing. But yeah. Okay. This would be great. I don't know if anyone on the call knows how we could do this, given that we use GitHub Actions for CI/CD. And I don't even think GitHub Actions has the way to like install an agent on some ARM VM in AWS if we wanted to use like AWS ARM VMs. I don't think they have
you
that
can
feature.
actually do that if you want. But we would need to have an ARM machine somewhere.
And I think with CNCF, we get a bunch of Google Cloud credits. I don't know if Google Cloud has ARM VMs, and maybe we would do that. Would be the preferred approach for us.
I'll check that actually, if we can get that.
Yeah. I don't know if they have it either, but interesting. Okay. I'm curious. Do they mention why they want ARM support? Oh yeah. We asked.
Edge workload,
Raspberry Pi. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true. I know a few folks who've done the Raspberry Pi thing, and they've just used the worker nodes as the Raspberry Pis, and then like the operator one, they've had to use a different instance. So okay, cool. For ARM support, we need an ARM machine to build. Wondering if Google Cloud could provide with CNCF. Okay. I'm not going to go ahead and update that issue right now, but okay, KEDA 2.1. Ooh, we're ready for another release. I'm so excited. Wow. It's already been drafted. Did you Zibyanek put this together 5 hours ago. Very cool. There's a ton here. Yeah, we're definitely due for a release.
But we can do it if we have to.
What was that we can do if we have to?
Yeah, I don't know if he added it, but if we want to, we can do it. I can maybe squeeze some time in on Friday, but then that's a Friday release. And
to actually like to manage the release.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be that hard.
Okay, I'm wondering if Tsuyoshi or something could be the release captain too. I wish we had a quick chat for me to just like chat with you, Zibyanek. Even when I guess we have email. Maybe I'll send out an email. We'll just figure out who can be the release kind of captain for this release. But yeah, this is great. There's a lot of good stuff here. Okay. I'm just reading through it quickly. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, let me make a note here to send sorry, I don't know what you can and can't see when I open up my to-do list. Hopefully there's nothing sensitive there. I moved it out anyway. Email Tsuyoshi on release captain ? Sweet. Yeah, I'll see if Tsuyoshi can grab it. that'd be super helpful. Oh, and I see a chat message here. Yeah, it
I
looks
don't
like
know
Aaron
if-
mentioned he doesn't think GCP has ARM VMs. Maybe CNCF gives us AWS credits too. They're the only cloud that I know has ARM VMs. I don't even know what Azure story is with that. I should know when or if it's coming, but I don't. Okay. And so the next one here, functions tooling, the Azure functions tooling. Now, when you use these commands that I think is what you linked to, I think there's actually even a doc here. If I come in here to
okay.
functions in Kubernetes, if you run this command, it will actually generate for you a KEDA 2.0 metadata and deployment, which is awesome. And like I said, it's live in prod now. I installed the latest functions core tooling, and it had that in there. And that is special thanks to Tom. Who did you end up just fully doing that entire PR? Like, did anyone even assist you on that other than reviewing it?
No, I did it, but it wasn't that much work.
Well, it was great to see. And now all my demos, in fact, I'm doing one tonight in a user group, a Kubernetes user group. All my demos, wherever I show using a function runtime with KEDA, I can now fully use KEDA 2.0. So
Now you know who to blame.
Now we know who to blame. I know exactly where to find them. Anything else more you want to add here, Tom?
No.
Thank you again.
Is that already officially shipped now, or is it still?
Yep, it's
okay.
out. It is out. If you have, and that's what, like if you just download through the main versions, Core Tools 3.0.3233, which I now have running on both my Mac and my Windows machines, they have the bits. So your bits are live in prod.
Okay, I'll look that version up and I'll add it to the notes.
Yep, 3233. 3.03233, and obviously greater. Okay, so that brings us here, Daniel, to this Calico and CNI stuff. I don't know if we're going to have many networking experts on the call. You kind of mentioned at the beginning, when they're using Calico, they're configuring their networking to pretty much like Calico is handling all traffic, and that gesture is somehow making it so that KEDA is unable to communicate. And I actually don't even fully know like which, because for KEDA to work, I believe the main call is like KEDA calling the event source and then KEDA calling the metrics API. And it sounds like one of those things or both of those things are being blocked. Any more you want to add there, Daniel? I don't know if you have any thoughts of what's going on.
Yeah. So I actually, Chris Dockery, I just had him join. He's our head of support, and he's been working with this for a while. He also kind of comes from a bit more of a networking background. So I think Chris can explain this a lot better than I can. It's a pretty interesting one.
Sure.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'll try to lay this out the best I can. So it's kind of a specific scenario where we have a customer running on EKS. The unique bit is that rather than just slapping Calico on top of an EKS cluster, which basically like delegates Calico to a network policy manager, they've actually ripped out the default EKS CNI, which is like AWS VPC CNI or whatever it's called. And so this leaves an EKS cluster in a unique situation where you're running Calico on all of your worker nodes, handling all of that traffic. But because it's a managed control plane, the control plane is still using VPC CNI, right? Like there's no way an end user can install their own stuff on the control plane for EKS. And so what that creates is a scenario where any pods that need to talk to the control plane have to run on host network, which is fine until we get a little further down the scenario where we're using network policies to restrict traffic in namespaces, right? So in this particular scenario, they're using they're running Airflow, and the scaling events that KEDA uses to determine when to scale is a PostgreSQL query looking for Airflow tasks. And in order to do that, it has to talk to the Postgres database through a PG bouncer pod in different namespaces. And in order to allow that traffic, we have network policies in place that allow, KEDA operator and KEDA operator metrics API server to speak to the PG bouncer in each namespace. What we found is that pods running on the host network do not respect these network policies, right? So no matter how wide open you create that network policy, the only way to actually enable that traffic is to delete the network policy altogether. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense or if you have any questions about the scenario we're talking about here, but I'm happy to talk about it more.
I think it made some sense. I think in short, and like maybe my even statement at the beginning is accurate and a good recap where it's like KEDA needs to do 2 or I guess 3 networking calls, like 3 primary networking calls that all must work for KEDA to work. The first one would be calling your event source. And in this case, it's PostgreSQL. And Postgres is inside the cluster as well. Is that how this is configured?
It can be inside or it can be an external database. Either way, the important part is that it's communicating via PG bouncer pods that are in the cluster.
Mm-hmm. So the first one is KEDA needs to be able to talk to Postgres to say like, hey, are there rows returned in our query to let me know there's data to be returned. And then the next thing KEDA needs to be able to talk to is the metrics API, which is part of the Kubernetes master, and say like, hey, metrics API, this is the answer I got from Postgres. And then the third one that I was thinking of while you're going through is KEDA actually makes a call directly to the Kubernetes APIs to scale from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 0 to say like, hey, I need you to modify this deployment, create an HPA and like make some operations controls. And from what you've described, if I understand right, the way that they've configured their network and the fact that they have control planes that need to go through the regular EKS traffic because it's AWS is managing those control planes. And then you have a bunch of traffic that's also being managed by Calico. KEDA's kind of trapped between both worlds, and you're not able to make a network policy that makes it happy enough to make all 3 of those calls. Is that a fair recap?
Right, exactly. So with network policies, once you have one in place, it's a deny all unless it's explicitly allowed. And so when you put a network policy in place, no matter because those KEDA pods are running on host network, they never get picked up by that network policy, so that traffic is never allowed.
Yeah, and so the problem is the way they've set up their cluster. It doesn't seem like there's an easy way for something to talk to both something outside of the host network and the host network itself. I don't quite know, and I don't know if other folks on the call have any thoughts. Like it would be good to capture some of this in a GitHub issue. That would be the first one, because I don't know if like Zibyanek or even some folks that we could ping might have other thoughts. I'm not sure even what KEDA could do here outside of kind of this interesting configuration. I don't know if it's weird. I don't know if it's a best practice. I don't actually know, but it's interesting. Like the almost thinking is
It's common enough that it is mentioned in the Calico documentation.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess one of the first questions I have is like, is KEDA the only kind of like operator that tries to exist in both worlds? Like I haven't thought about it enough on the spot, but like, I feel like there's other operators that you would want to install that would both need to talk to the master node and make some Kubernetes calls, but also might want some ability to traffic things in other places. A lot of sidecar operate, like Istio even, I would imagine is doing some stuff there. And so part of me is interested in like, is this a KEDA problem or is this a Calico EKS CNI problem?
What I think we can do is provide some basic guidance in our operate page, which can just be a pointer to official documentation or just explain what needs to be done. Or we can create an FAQ which talks about if you use Calico, you need to do this and this, or keep this in mind. Would that help?
Yeah, because the only other thought, like I was thinking, like, is there a world that we split up KEDA? Like, not that we would do this. I don't think we would make this change just for, but like in a theoretical world, like how could we build KEDA in a way that would get around this pattern? And I don't need, like, there'd have to be some, like maybe instead of KEDA talking to the Postgres database, KEDA talks to something that has that answer, and then you would have to deploy something in the cluster that's pulling Postgres and then just storing the answer in some storage, and then KEDA's just pulling it from the storage. I don't know if that, like, pretty much you relay the data. You say like KEDA's no longer going to be using HTTP or whatever it's using to talk to Postgres. I'm going to use a relay here or a message broker to get the messages that KEDA needs to KEDA. I don't know if theoretically that would work. It's interesting. Like I don't know if that feature would have much use outside of this scenario, but I don't know. Also, like I'm not an expert in Calico or CNI. I'm mostly just trying to piece together like what could be done here. So I think first and foremost, it would be like describing some of this as an issue, maybe linking to your point, Daniel. I think you mentioned like Calico has some docs on this scenario. I would be interested if we did some Google searching and we saw like, you know, for other popular Kubernetes operators, whether it's Linkerd or Istio or whatever else, does this seem to be a problem that other people have hit, and how did they get around it, or have they been able to? And that might help us better understand what could be done here.
So Jeff, is that architecture sort of just like running an external scaler for Postgres and then having KEDA just point KEDA to that?
I thought about that for a second, but then I was like, I don't even know if KEDA would be able to talk to that external scaler. But yeah, that crossed my mind too. Is it's like, what if you split it up and you like made it an external scaler? And I just don't know, like if that would somehow bypass it, like maybe, yeah, doing a quick repro and seeing if you could use like this ActiveMQ Artemis external scaler, and that seems to work, then that would be an arguably a much easier path, which would be like spin up a quick external scaler, which is Postgres, where you pretty much copy and paste the code that's in the KEDA operator now, stick it in an external scaler. But yeah, it's a great question, Aaron. I'm glad you brought it up because that crossed my mind. I just don't know. I don't know if that would actually successfully bypass where Calico's not very happy right now.
Couldn't you say that it is a prerequisite that it has access?
What do you mean, Tom? Like in docs, you mean?
Yeah, that we document that if you use PostgreSQL, for example, that KEDA needs to have permissions to talk to it. I think I maybe don't get the full scenario, so an issue would be good to process it a bit, and then we can see what we can do.
I do imagine there's some way you could build an external scaler that would somehow, like you could almost build an external scaler that just knows how to coordinate with something that has the access that you need to Postgres. Maybe it's not actually an external scaler to Postgres. Maybe it's an external scaler to a container that drops something in storage that then another container running within the right network, you know, wakes up on and says like, oh, I'm going to go make this call and then relay the info back, like kind of acting as a bridge. Like you almost build a bridge external scaler. That in theory could work too. That one actually would be easier than changing how KEDA works. It's just a lot of extra moving pieces to get around what feels like, I mean, candidly, what feels like a perfect world is that Calico has a network policy that is flexible enough to say like, hey, this thing needs to be able to talk to both sides of this coin. But I'm speaking well above my expertise here when it comes to networking policies. Makes sense. Daniel, Chris, on opening an issue to continuing the investigation there.
Yeah, I'll work with Daniel to get that done.
Great. It would be, and that also too, it's like Zibionek's not here. He is likely a better Kubernetes networking expert than myself and Tom. And I'd be interested to get his thoughts on it too. Okay, Aaron, that brings us to you. Anything else on this one? EKS, Calico, CNI? Okay. Aaron, HTTP add-on.
Cool. Yeah, just share a short status. Sorry, I haven't been to the meeting in the past couple meetings.
No worries.
So yeah, we had, if you remember, a prototype repository with a working implementation. Just the architecture wasn't really exactly what we wanted. So we've moved over all the relevant code from there to a pull request in the HTTP add-on repository. So we've got things just about working. The problem is the Helm chart. So we're still debugging a few things in the Helm chart. At that point, we will be able to merge that pull request. Probably a few more things to do just to clean up the code and clean up just the overall interaction with the operator. And I think we'd be able to call it probably an alpha.
Wow.
I have to put together a few more issues just to overview what we need to do to get to a beta, at which point we'll be able to cut a beta. So I'm thinking early to mid February is when we can do something. We can get something called a beta out. At which point I'll record a few ASCII casts or screencasts or something like that, and write a couple blog posts over different places on the internet and so forth. So that brings me to the last thing. I did a talk at a small conference called Contributing.today along with Tom. So Tom, you did KEDA overview, right?
Yep.
And then you also gave me an awesome introduction. So Tom sold KEDA HTTP. I didn't really have to do the talk, but thank you for that. So I followed right up after Tom's KEDA overview with an HTTP add-on overview. I showed a demo of the prototype, but talked a lot more about, you know, what KEDA HTTP looks like and why it's around and so forth. So that was, I thought, both of our talks I thought went really well. Tom's better than mine, but that was great. I've got a couple more things lined up for late February, so hopefully we'll have at least an alpha, but probably a beta out for that, so we can show the demo of the actual thing running instead of just the prototype and faking it. So yeah, that's about it for where we are now. I'm excited.
That's awesome. Yeah, this is great progress. I know this. I noticed this repo was here, and I even plugged it during one of the answers in the webinar that I helped with, where someone was asking about HTTP. I didn't realize we had the pull request already open though, with a bunch of the code. And as you mentioned, it looks like it's almost ready to merge in. So this is really exciting. Yeah, I'm happy to help promote some of this material, both the repo itself when it's in alpha state, but then also whatever supporting material we get. This seems like a very compelling story and scenario. Like I mentioned, I've never, given a KEDA presentation without this being a question, and I know Tom even added this to the FAQ in our homepage. So keen to see how the response is for this, how many folks it unblocks, and how we continue to evolve this story too. So thanks, Aaron. That's a great update.
Would you be up for writing a blog post as well?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Would you look for it? Are you looking for a blog post after the alpha or farther down the line?
I would say that we publish with the alpha so that we get people's initial idea, and then we can also start using that as a reference to see if we should integrate certain bits and pieces with other projects or not.
Sure.
But I think that
would be so
a
that
good start.
Yeah, I can for sure write a post. That last thing you said, Tom, the bits and pieces thing reminded me as well. What we're thinking about doing is writing an SMI external scaler, and kind of using that as a prototype, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if it seems to fit well and work well, and do scaling well and so forth, then we can merged back into core, if that makes sense. I know there's an issue open for it.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. There is the SMI one. I was just asking Tom about that one the other day because I know he's been chatting with some folks from the SMI world. Great. Okay, so good updates on HTTP add-on. Thank you, Aaron, for joining and give us that. The last one I'll mention, Tom, I think brought this up last meeting, which is that we want to pursue the next step in our CNCF process. We are right now a sandbox project, and we're interested in becoming an incubation project. I spent some time last week just looking at the criteria. And from what I can read, I think we meet all the criteria, all of the stuff around having a community, which is currently on this wonderful phone call, and elsewhere around having some folks using KEDA in production. So we're going to work towards that. I have asked a new PM, well, not a new PM, a PM who's been on my team for a while, but she's just recently returned from some leave. I've asked her to see if she can help get this process going. I think she was going to try to join this meeting this morning, but I don't see her, so that's fine. But mostly a heads up, Tom. Her name's Sonia. I've asked Sonia to see if she can drive some of the work here to get the incubation status set up. So I'm sure she will be pinging you if she has not already, and myself to get everything that we need to get that set up in review. I think we review in one of the SIGs. I don't know. They're always changing the process. But yeah, that's a good update, and I'm feeling optimistic that we could actually pull this off, and that's a major achievement. There's not a whole lot of CNCF incubation projects, and those that are there are really world-class projects. So I'm hoping we can get to that step, find out. And if not, we'll get some good feedback from the CNCF on what else they need to see from us. That is the end of our regularly scheduled programming. Anyone want to flag any more items or discussion topics while we're all on the call?
Anybody who's using it in production and who wants to become a listed user.
Yes, Tom. Okay, Tom is fantastic at reaching out to folks and making sure that our logo wall becomes even more beautiful. So if you are on the call and you're like, hey, I'm cool to have my logo be here, that would be awesome. You can open up a PR on the KEDA Docs repo. If you don't even want to open the PR, you can ping Tom or myself on Slack and say, here's the logo, yes, and we will open the PR for you. But we love our logo wall. Go for it, Tom.
I have one coming soon, but it's waiting the typical legal review.
You're sure? Yeah.
But hoping that others also share it as well.
And then Terry asked estimate release date for 2.1. Terry, I think optimistically, we're hoping it will land later this week, maybe on Thursday or something. It might be next week, though. Next week's probably a safer bet for 2.1, just because I don't know how good the response is. But if we're lucky, it will land later this week.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep, no worries. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'll upload this recording to our YouTube channel, and we will meet again 2 weeks from today. So thanks everyone. If you need us in the meantime, Slack is probably the easiest way. There's details for the Slack channel in our KEDA.sh so that you can join. Where is the Slack channel info? Oh, right here. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks everyone. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.